The galaxy of complacent empires. The galaxy had long been a playground for empires who had mastered the art of dominance. For millennia, mighty civilizations, each older than human history could even comprehend, had carved spheres of influence across the stars. The HFY Empire, with their psychic commanders and biologically engineered warships, ruled the galactic core with an iron will. The Thalrith Collective, a hive-minded species controlling vast swarms of drones, dominated the Outer Rim, crushing any opposition with mechanical precision. Even the Zephyr Dominion, traders and mercenaries extraordinaire, had turned commerce into an instrument of political conquest. In their own eyes, the galaxy was predictable, orderly, and entirely theirs. Amidst these giants, humans were almost invisible. A species confined to a pale blue planet on the edge of an ordinary star, humans were weak, disorganized, and technologically primitive. Alien scholars scoffed at Earth civilizations, dismissing them as inconsequential. A minor species, the HFY scribes recorded, with no potential to influence galactic affairs. Merely children playing in the dirt. Yet the very qualities that made humans appear fragile were precisely what the aliens failed to understand. Humans thrived in adversity. Their world demanded adaptability, scorching deserts, frozen tundras, tempestuous oceans. Civilizations rose and fell, wars destroyed kingdoms, and plagues swept through populations, but humanity endured. Each catastrophe sharpened them, teaching lessons no textbook could convey. Their survival instinct was not just strong, it was relentless. The first alien encounter with humanity was, by all appearances, a simple scouting mission. A Thalrith fleet arrived near Sol System, expecting a quick observation of a backward species. They found more than they had anticipated. The humans were poorly armed, their vessels slow and clunky compared to the sleek alien designs, but they moved with a randomness that was impossible to anticipate. Fleet formations the Thalrith had studied for centuries were disrupted by unpredictable maneuvers. Alien commanders, trained to calculate outcomes with perfect precision, found themselves confounded. The humans did not follow logic, they improvised, they adapted, and against all odds, they inflicted losses far beyond what the aliens considered acceptable. Though the humans were ultimately defeated, the impact of that engagement reverberated across the galaxy. Reports trickled into the core. Earthlings were not merely surviving, they were thriving under conditions that should have been fatal. Colonies on distant planets demonstrated astonishing adaptability. Settlements flourished on barren desert worlds, icy moons, and even toxic atmospheres hostile to other species. The HFY laughed, dismissing these as anomalies, but in hidden council chambers, whispers of doubt began to stir. Meanwhile, humans themselves were oblivious to the growing attention. Their eyes were fixed on their own struggles, political infighting, resource shortages, and internal conflicts. Yet these struggles forged a species capable of creativity, audacity, and relentless determination. Humans did not fear failure, they learned from it. Where alien empires relied on rigid hierarchies and perfect execution, humanity relied on intuition, improvisation, and an instinctive resilience born from eons of surviving a harsh and unforgiving planet. Centuries of alien dominance had bred complacency. HFY scholars could not imagine a species operating outside predictable patterns. Thalrith strategists dismissed random variations as errors in judgment. They could not fathom that chaos itself could be a weapon. Humans, to them, were fragile, unrefined, and ultimately irrelevant. Yet history has a way of humbling even the proudest empires, and the galaxy had never encountered chaos quite like humanity. In the quiet chambers of HFY councils, murmurs began to spread. Perhaps this species is not as weak as we thought, an elder whispered, his voice tinged with unease. Another scoffed, they may survive a storm, but they are children. Empires do not fall to children. Still, the seed of uncertainty had been planted. For humans, life continued unaware of the cosmic gaze upon them. They were hunters, farmers, engineers, and dreamers, surviving through ingenuity and sheer will. Their ships were still slow, their weapons primitive, yet they displayed an instinctive brilliance the aliens could not predict. Humanity's potential was hidden in plain sight, dismissed as mere chaos, but chaos can be a terrible force when underestimated. And so, the galaxy turned, complacent in its dominion, blind to the small, chaotic species at its edge. The empires laughed, the stars shone, and humans, fragile, chaotic, and underestimated, continued to survive, adapt, and grow. It would be a long time before the galaxy realized that the species it mocked would one day command fear, respect, and dominion like no other. The spark of human defiance. The galaxy had barely noticed humanity, and yet the first sparks of defiance were quietly igniting. Across distant star systems, human colonies, though small and vulnerable, were learning to survive under conditions that alien empires assumed would break them. Planets that should have been uninhabitable were being tamed through ingenuity, artificial biospheres, adaptive technologies, and sheer human determination. The universe had never seen such audacity, and soon, that audacity would demand attention. It began with the Krylon incident, an event that would mark humanity's first undeniable stand against galactic forces. A rogue alien fleet, comprised of mercenaries from the Zephyr Dominion, had broken away from Imperial oversight, pillaging outlying colonies in the outer sectors. Their goal was simple: plunder and terrorize. Yet the humans they attacked were not defenseless. Outnumbered and technologically outmatched, they responded with what the aliens would later call madness, tactics that defied all conventional strategy. Human commanders deployed decoy fleets that appeared as easy prey but concealed hidden weapon caches and trap coordinates. The rogue fleet, confident in its superiority, sailed into what it believed was an easy victory. Instead, it encountered ambushes that were impossibly timed, attacks from angles that seemed illogical, and traps set with a precision that no alien algorithms could predict. One human admiral, a woman named Alara Dane, orchestrated a maneuver where her fleet feigned retreat through a gas giant's orbit, only to emerge from its shadow to strike at the enemy's rear with devastating effect. Within days, a fleet of hundreds of alien warships was reduced to a scattered, retreating force. Across the core, word of humanity's audacity spread like wildfire. Alien historians and strategists began to whisper, perhaps these humans are more than simple prey. They observed that humans did not rely solely on brute strength or advanced technology. They relied on creativity, improvisation, and an instinctive understanding of unpredictability. Unlike alien empires, where success depended on rigid planning and absolute obedience, humans could adapt on the fly, making decisions that confounded even the most sophisticated predictive systems. Humans themselves hardly recognized the significance of their victories. For them, it was survival, not conquest. Each challenge tested their adaptability, forcing them to think faster, move smarter, and push beyond their perceived limits. The Krylon incident became a symbol of their instinctive defiance, proving that even the smallest human contingent could outwit and outfight forces many times their size. The alien response was cautious at first. The VRY-TAC dispatched observers to study human tactics, hoping to identify weaknesses they could exploit. The Thalrith Collective ran simulations against hypothetical human strategies, only to find that humans consistently acted in ways that were statistically improbable, if not impossible. The more the aliens studied, the more they realized a frightening truth: humans could not be predicted. Chaos was their weapon, and fear their natural consequence. Meanwhile, human society was changing. Colonies became interconnected through faster communication and collaborative networks, sharing lessons learned from each encounter. Technological development accelerated, but it was never just about raw power, it was about innovation and adaptation. A device built to survive the storms of a desert planet became a weapon against a Thalrith ambush. A terraforming algorithm used to make frozen moons habitable became a tactical shield against incoming missile strikes. Humans did not merely solve problems, they turned solutions into advantages in ways alien empires could not foresee. The galaxy began to take notice. Some alien commanders, once dismissive, grew uneasy. Intelligence reports began labeling humanity as a variable of concern, a species that refused to conform to expectations. The VRY-TAC, previously confident in their psychic foresight, admitted privately that human behavior was impossible to calculate. The Thalrith Collective, who relied on flawless pattern recognition, found that every encounter left them with more questions than answers. By the end of the Krylon incident, one fact was undeniable: humans were no longer just survivors, they were defiant actors on the galactic stage. And while alien empires could still dismiss them outwardly, the seeds of fear had been sown. A species once thought insignificant had demonstrated that courage, creativity, and adaptability could turn the tide of battle against overwhelming odds. As humans returned home, battered but unbroken, they did not celebrate in triumph or arrogance. Instead, they prepared, studied, and adapted. Every victory became a lesson, every loss a blueprint for improvement. In the shadows of the galaxy, alien empires began to whisper the first words of dread. These humans, they are unlike anything we have ever faced. And so, the spark of human defiance blazed across the stars, a small flame that would grow into a fire no empire could ignore.
The human juggernaut. By now, humanity was no longer a curiosity to the galaxy, it had become a force that could not be ignored. Following the shock of their early victories, humans accelerated their expansion, consolidating colonies into a coordinated network of worlds connected by ingenuity, technology, and an unbreakable spirit. They had learned that survival was no longer enough. To secure their future, they needed to dominate strategically, adapt relentlessly, and strike boldly. The first true test of this emerging power came during the Zorath confrontation, where a coalition of alien empires attempted to contain humanity before it could grow further. The HFY dispatched psychic admirals, the Thalrith swarmed with drone fleets, and the Zypher Dominion provided mercenary warships to enforce a blockade. The galaxy expected humans to crumble under the weight of superior firepower. Yet humanity did what it always did best, it turned weakness into strength. Human commanders had studied alien tactics in depth, learning the predictable rhythms of fleets that had ruled the stars for millennia. But rather than mimic these tactics, they exploited the rigidity of alien strategy. Human vessels used decoy signatures, altered trajectories at impossible speeds, and lured enemy fleets into unfamiliar stellar phenomena. One daring maneuver involved navigating through the debris field of a shattered moon, using gravity wells to amplify the speed of assault shuttles, striking at enemy supply lines with precision no alien mind could anticipate. Meanwhile, humans did not merely rely on cunning, they innovated technology in ways that alien empires could not predict. Ships were equipped with adaptive shielding that learned from enemy fire, weapons systems repurposed for improvisational strikes, and communications networks that allowed instantaneous collaboration across vast distances. Even the HFY, masters of psychic warfare, found themselves disrupted by humans who learned to conceal intent and act unpredictably. The humans did not merely fight, they rewrote the rules of engagement. The psychological impact on alien forces was devastating. Pilots whispered of ghost ships appearing from impossible angles, admirals cursed humans for anticipating maneuvers they themselves had never considered. The Thalrith collective, so confident in hive mind coordination, found their drones repeatedly neutralized by humans who improvised electronic countermeasures in real time. Alien morale cracked. Some fleets retreated not from firepower, but from the unrelenting unpredictability and audacity of human forces. On the home front, humanity's rise fueled unity and ambition. Colonies once isolated became interconnected hubs of research, strategy, and industrial output. Every battle was analyzed, every encounter catalogued, and every lesson applied to the next challenge. Leadership became decentralized yet cohesive, with humans empowered to act creatively within a shared vision. Where alien empires relied on rigid hierarchies and obedience, humans thrived in flexibility, turning every decision into an opportunity. By the end of the Zorath confrontation, humans had not only survived, they had rewritten the map of power. Worlds previously controlled by the alien coalition fell under human influence, not necessarily through conquest alone, but through tactical brilliance and intimidation. Stories of human heroism, of fleets turning the tide against overwhelming odds, of single commanders holding entire sectors, of audacious strategies that defied logic, spread across the galaxy. Alien empires, once supremely confident, now whispered warnings. The humans cannot be predicted, they cannot be controlled, they cannot be defeated by conventional means. It was not only humans' cunning that inspired fear, it was their relentless ambition. Unlike alien empires, which often sought to preserve tradition and maintain hierarchies, humanity expanded with a single-minded drive, to survive, adapt, and thrive. Every world colonized, every fleet deployed, and every victory achieved reinforced the inevitability of human ascendancy. Fear became a weapon in itself. Alien empires hesitated to challenge humans, knowing that a miscalculation could cost entire fleets or worlds. In the shadows of conquered sectors, alien historians began revising their narratives. For the first time, humans were not footnotes or curiosities, they were a force that demanded respect and terror in equal measure. The phrase the human juggernaut began to circulate among alien officers, a whispered acknowledgement that a species once dismissed as weak had become unstoppable through audacity, creativity, and sheer adaptability. By the close of the confrontation, the galaxy had changed. Human fleets patrolled the stars with confidence, their presence a warning to any empire considering aggression. Alien powers no longer underestimated humanity, they feared it. And yet, for humans, fear was not the goal, it was a byproduct of their survival, their ingenuity, and their relentless drive to thrive against all odds. Humanity had crossed the threshold from underdog to juggernaut, and the galaxy would never be the same again. When the galaxy learned to fear humanity, the galaxy had changed. The empires that had once laughed at humans now trembled at the mere mention of their name. The HFY psychic warlords, the Thalrith collective's drone commanders, and the mercenary legions of the Zypher Dominion, all had come to a single, unshakable conclusion. Humanity was no longer to be underestimated. Humans were not merely survivors, not simply innovators, they were a force that redefined fear itself. It began subtly. Alien fleets that once patrolled boldly now advanced cautiously, scanning for traps that might never exist. Trade convoys rerouted to avoid human-controlled space, and diplomatic envoys tread carefully, aware that a single misstep could spark an unpredictable retaliation. Humanity had mastered a new form of dominance, the projection of fear. Their reputation preceded them, and that reputation often accomplished what weapons could not. The defining moment came during the Eclipse conflict, a confrontation spanning hundreds of light-years, where a coalition of alien empires attempted to halt human expansion. Their strategy relied on overwhelming numbers and technological superiority. Yet humans, now seasoned and battle-hardened, turned every perceived disadvantage into opportunity. They manipulated enemy expectations, orchestrated multi-system feints, and deployed adaptive weapons that evolved during combat. Entire fleets were rendered ineffective before the aliens could comprehend the scale of their losses. But it was not only their strategy that terrified the galaxy. Humans wielded fear with an almost artistic precision. They sent messages before attacks, warning of possible retaliation, leaving empires uncertain of when or where humans might strike. Stories of human audacity spread, a single ship sabotaging an entire blockade, a squadron of fighter crafts turning back an invasion fleet, colonies resisting sieges through improvised defenses that defied logic. Alien commanders began to doubt themselves, hesitant to commit forces lest they become pawns in humanity's unpredictable games. Within human-controlled space, society thrived on the same principles that had brought them victory. Innovation was constant, collaboration seamless, and adaptability ingrained. No single planet or fleet held all knowledge. Instead, lessons were shared instantly across vast distances, ensuring humans evolved faster than any alien empire could anticipate. Leadership was dynamic, decentralized, and empowered individuals to make bold decisions, an approach that alien empires, with their rigid hierarchies, could not counter. The psychological toll on the galaxy was profound. Alien historians, once confident in the permanence of their empires, began recording humans as an anomaly, an unpredictable, unstoppable species that broke every known law of strategy and survival. Even in defeat, human forces inspired awe. Tales circulated of commanders who, faced with annihilation, turned the tide with ingenuity and courage. A single colony world, besieged by a dozen alien fleets, resisted long enough to sabotage enemy operations across 3 neighboring systems. The galaxy realized that resistance to humans was not simply futile, it was perilous. By the end of the Eclipse conflict, humans had not only expanded their territory but also cemented a reputation that no empire could challenge. Diplomacy now involved fear as much as negotiation. Alien leaders calculated not only the cost of conflict but the unpredictability of human response, often deciding that surrender or accommodation was wiser than engagement. Entire fleets and planetary systems submitted to human influence without a fight, intimidated by the audacity, adaptability, and relentless determination of a species that had once been dismissed as insignificant. Yet, humanity's rise was not driven by cruelty or desire for vengeance. It was driven by survival, innovation, and vision. They had learned to harness fear not as an end but as a byproduct of their unmatched capabilities. Alien empires who once believed themselves eternal discovered that domination could be challenged, that even the most confident rulers could hesitate in the face of uncertainty, and that no calculation could predict human action. In the core council of the HFY, a historian recorded a new truth. Many empires have fallen, many fleets shattered, many worlds subdued. But none have inspired the same terror, none have demanded the same respect, none have been as utterly unpredictable as humanity. Across the galaxy, the phrase "fear the humans" became a whispered reality, a statement no alien could dispute. Humanity had achieved something unprecedented. The galaxy had learned to fear them not just for their power, but for their relentless spirit, audacious ingenuity, and unbreakable will. They had transformed from an overlooked species into the architects of a new galactic order, a force whose shadow stretched across stars and whose influence reshaped empires. And so, the galaxy entered an era it would never forget, an era in which humans, chaotic and resilient, ruled not only through strength but through the indomitable force of their presence, a presence that promised one undeniable truth: no empire, alien or otherwise, would ever face humanity without fear.